affecting these individuals.
Yeah.
Because I was unsure of what it would be like when I was a support person in this capacity. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be at home with their child who's like falling apart, who's suicidal, who's homicidal, who's violent. And they're not going to have anybody to like sit and talk with in the same capacity. What's this going to be like? It was a lot different than I expected.
Mm. Okay, so like in regards to addiction, what do you feel like out of the different sort of substance addictions that exist, what do you feel is the most difficult addiction to like to overcome, or has like the lowest rate of recovery?
uh, I think, oh, I don't know the technical term for it, but as far as like food addiction, that's what I think.
Mm. Ah, yeah, that makes sense
So,
because it's inescapable. It's not something you can, I mean, it's necessary for survival, and yeah,
yeah,
and was
yeah,
the first comfort we ever received, right?
yeah, yeah. So way before, uh, you had access to, methamphetamines or heroin or whatever, um, you had access to donuts. And so
Mm,
that muscle memory, and I think we see that a lot too. And like when people put down certain substance, they pick up food. So they go right back to that comfort of soothing. And there's even jokes about it, like, the clean 20 or, like that you put on. And so, like, when you get clean, you put on weight.
yeah.
So,
I wonder, this thought just occurred to me, um, that because that bond with our mother is the first time we experience comfort in the form of food, I wonder
mhm.
if food addiction in some way it is largely tangled up in some sort of maternal um, trauma or yearning or something like that, you know?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting to think about. Yeah, that muscle memory was there from day one. I mean, that's the first thing that they do is comfort a baby with
Yeah,
food.
I never thought
Mhm.
before. Okay, so within like our society, do you feel like there are certain things that make a person more vulnerable? Um, and and if you can identify those things, who would you say those people are?
Hmm. I mean, that's like an interesting question because, um, of course, like, uh, I think like social, like, different like poverty and stuff like that, I think can make a person more, um, vulnerable to, because you're just in that, that's part of it, like if you live in a certain part of town or, so, but I'm not sure because addiction doesn't discriminate. It affects all different class and, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I was watching this video today on it's called Dosed. It's a documentary on Amazon Prime, and it's about a girl who had a like really severe opiate addiction for over 20 years, and her parents are wealthy, so she never had to want for anything, never had to work, never had to go to jail, spent time in like $30,000 recovery treatment centers only to relapse the day she leaves, and just this trail of of addiction, and her addiction was severe. And I was thinking, like, I never really looked at the fact that that rock bottom that I hit, like, was a necessary step, or maybe not necessary, but was like a benefit, like kind of
Oh,
gave me that opportunity to wake up. So it's almost like, yes, people in poverty are, yes, very vulnerable, but isn't someone who also has no financial insecurity vulnerable in the completely opposite way? Because, like, how are they ever gonna, and so what she ended up doing was seeking plant medicine assisted therapy treatment. And so she tried psilocybin first, and then ended up finding out about ibogaine. And so then she went in and did like a 3-week ibogaine therapy treatment session, and ended up being completely cured. I mean, at least they followed her like a year or two into her recovery, and she was totally clean. So that's something that I'm really interested in. What are your thoughts on using plant medicine, like these psychedelic substances in a medically controlled setting, as a way to open up one's mind to, like, the divine source energy, and to promote, like, to break them free of all the conditioning and the monotony that they're kind of trapped in, and allow them to open up their perception and their heart to something bigger? Do you feel like, because there's a huge stigma around this, and it's like, oh, these are drug addicts, you can't treat them with drugs, but we have no problem giving people methadone, which is more addictive than heroin. They have to go to the pharmacy every day to get it, because the pharmacies get paid every time they come to the counter. And so what is your thoughts on using these psychedelic substances in a medically controlled environment to promote therapeutic healing in relation to drug addiction?
So personally, I feel like everyone's journey is different. I think there's like many pathways to recovery. And I actually am a big uh I believe in like harm reduction. So um do I personally, from the people that I've worked with that are participating in like harm reduction programs, is their quality of life as good as someone who's fully abstinent from all substances? I mean, personally, I don't think so. But from what I've seen with like harm reduction, is their life better than when they're fully hooked on heroin? Yes. Like their life is substantially better. Like so if that is where they choose to go as far as like their health and wellness and how they feel. So heroin, meth, all the things like if they're homeless, experiencing homelessness and lost their kids and like living on the streets and have no quality of life and committing crimes and in jail and prison, if that's where they're at on those substances, and then they use a harm reduction and they're working a part-time job and they're having visitation with their kids and whatever that looks like for them. For me, um, going to the methadone clinic every single day, doing all of this, if that's like a ball and chain that then gets them to here, like I'm a huge advocate for that. Whatever that looks like everything is individualized to a person. There's like no cookie cutter way. So if this is part of their story and they're here and that gets them to the quality of life that they feel is what they want for themselves, and I'm all for it.
Okay.
I'm not one to judge. Like I'm not one to say that there's only one way, because
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's just interesting because there have been studies done recently, because the MAPS Foundation, which is the people that are funding these research studies using these psychedelics as a treatment method, the ibogaine treatment has been 10 times more successful in long-term recovery than any kind of previous rehabilitation. So there's just like a lot of like really, really interesting, like very recent information that I'm like very interested in. But I have a hard time seeing it as a harm reduction. I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
A harm reduction, you mean like Suboxone, methadone, Vivitrol, those kind of things, as well as like the places where people can go to use and those kind of things.
I just think like it's just a term like for anybody that's like finding a better quality of life through whatever they're choosing. So harm reduction can be like if if you're drinking hard liquor and then you decide to drink beer, just as like whatever. Like I think harm reduction is just a general term for me. So like if drinking liquor all day has you passed out and you're, like, can't work, can't do anything, and you're able to live some kind of quality life on something different, and that is slowly leading you to, okay, so the harm reduction for me is like I still vape, but I'm not smoking cigarettes. But so vaping, I still crave cigarettes. I still want cigarettes. Um, but I'm vaping, which seems a little bit better for me. But when I go to the gym and I work out, I still have a hard time breathing. So would my life be fully better? Like, would I be more healthy if I wasn't doing any of that? Of course. But for me, I find more benefit than the cigarettes.
Um, okay, and then so let's talk about like treatment methods now. Like there's a lot of different, like we were just discussing the new field of like plant medicine being used, but there's a lot of other different ways of treating addiction. What do you feel is the most effective treatment like modality?